Hey everyone, it's me Gamerturk, welcome to Gamerturk's Onsen, and today we're continuing with my efforts at catching up to Shaman King anime. Today we're gonna cover episode 24, Trust No One, and episode 25, The Great Onmyoji Asakura Hao. Again, I figured it would be a good idea to bundle these two episodes together because they're basically, a two-parter episode. They are, once again, and I'm very glad this is the case by the way, quite the solid episodes, although this time around, unlike the previous two, I do have some gripes with it. Not all of them are necessarily because of the way anime decided to adapt certain situations, it's more about the narrative itself. But yeah, there's some things I want to say about the anime too. But again, it's not all bad. These two episodes were greatly adapted. They were very important episodes, especially for setting up certain concepts and characters' powers, etc. Kind of a good follow-up, because that was exactly the case with the previous two episodes too, but that was about Yo, whereas these two are more about Hao. But starting with episode 24, we start exactly where we left off last episode with Yo coming to see Lyserg, and well, it's a great scene, showcasing that internal conflict within Lyserg, and of course Yo's, quite a distaste towards X-Laws and the way they do stuff, which gets especially intense towards the end of this specific scene when Marco and Yo actually go against each other. And the thing about me is I sometimes look too much into certain scenes, which can kind of lift the curtains a bit, and I can tell you it's not always good, because when the story goes naturally, it's the events that push characters into certain directions and make them do certain things. There's a very clear flow of things that happens as a reaction to what happened before, whereas sometimes you'll get this feeling of, why does this scene exactly exist? Where did this scene exactly come from? And those kinds of things happen when an author wants to have a specific scene but doesn't exactly tie it to anything happening before, so the scene is just happening because it needed to happen. You can justify this. Maybe Yo wanted to talk a bit with Lyserg, maybe Lyserg wanted to talk a bit with Yo, sure, because they saw some really ugly shit when the Iron Maiden was doing quite the unmonetizable stuff inside the stadium. But again, it just does not feel natural to draw this over here. Of course, it still leads to a beautifully intense scene, especially when Yo and Marco go against each other, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the way Yo just moves in and very directly, this is why I hate you guys. So yeah, despite the fact that I don't enjoy how this scene came to be, I really enjoy what this scene specifically is. I think it was important to just separate those two aspects of my enjoyment in this case. And it's certainly one of the best scenes when Jean is just going, look at how he's still unfazed after all of this, and Yo is like, eh? I love those kinds of juxtaposition stuff. Some of the things X-Laws do is a little too over the top for me to actually chuckle at the supposed jokes, but everything that goes with Yo's, either carelessness or absolute have no clue what the fuck is going on moments, those ones I really like. We got our Halloween team introduction, of course, which are gonna come later in the series, in one or two episodes, to be honest, not that much. I do have an issue with Jean going, next time we meet we'll be foes and we'll judge you, yeah, but I'm not gonna speak about it because that's for later. But yeah, the main treat, well, one of the two main treats of this episode is the X3 versus Hao's team. And I got nothing much to say about this. It has really nice moments, and the flashback that we have in the middle with Marco and Lyserg and the other team members coming in, these are throwaway characters in a sense. The X3 I'm talking about, of course, not Marco or Jean, but these expendable three characters getting a little bit of insight into how they think, why they do what they do. It really fills their characters into a proper personality, and that's really important when you have throwaway characters. Yes, they are throwaway characters, but that's not necessarily bad. That's how stories work, there are characters and then there are no more characters. Especially when you have a shonen show where people kill each other every other episode. Yeah, that's kind of what happens, and it's perfectly fine. So what you need to do is exactly this, give those throwaway characters a little bit of background, just enough for them to feel like proper characters who have weight in the story, despite the fact that they don't have much weight, let's be real. But it's that perception. If you present something properly, you already covered like 70% of the way. And that's what they did here, you know, these throwaway characters, they do feel alive, they have proper motivations, and they do have that drive to keep the narrative going forward in the way that it needs to. And that's why when Lyserg is absolutely destroyed when they see X3 destroy themselves just for a single cause, you know, it hits. I find that specific moment quite similar to Kirito's nightmare sequence. That's why I had complained that most of the nightmare sequence was cut out. Those of you watching SAO know what I'm talking about, because that nightmare sequence introduces two characters that we barely know anything about, but it's not about those characters. They receive enough of a screen time within that nightmare to make us feel really empathize with Kirito at that moment, who's our main character. It's the same situation here. These side characters, the X3, have received enough of substance that we care about Lyserg's pain here, and of course Yo's pain too. Not that he specifically has a relationship, but you know, he's more about, well, how much more are we gonna just let Hao do his thing? To be frank, this is the first time Yo is seeing Hao do anything of this magnitude, but yeah, we have seen Hao, yes, he's evil, that's fine. But moving on to the next episode, episode 25, the Great Onmyoji Asakura Hao. Well, this portion of the narrative, it has some really good moments, but also moments that I really do not like. And how to structure this properly so it doesn't get out of hand. I don't want this taking too long because I'm still trying to play catch up. So I think the best way to do this is I won't go chronologically according to the episode, I'll just speak on the top of my mind. First off, this is the episode where we get the proper background of Asakura Hao, which is okay. It's a good background to have, of course, with all the shenanigans. The problem I have with this background information being dumped right now is the fact that they tried dumping a little bit of it at the very first episode and then played up until this moment the entire narrative as if we weren't supposed to know Hao and Yo were brothers. Like, this is where the secret properly comes out to every other character, as well as properly presented to the viewer, us. And I mean, yeah, that would have been perfectly fine to have this in episode 25 if you hadn't shown us the entire thing, the entire key moment of this back at the beginning of episode 1. But okay, I'll cut this episode some slack because that is not the problem of this episode, but rather the way episode 1 was designed. That should not have been in episode 1, and it should have been a reveal, proper reveal over here. So yeah, we got that covered. Now, within that background information, I really love Yomei as a character. Mikisa too, but we'll talk about them in the next 2 or 3 episodes, so I'll save that for now. But Yomei, his pain and, you know, being stuck in between these two options, that was good. That was portrayed really good. Now, if we look at the Hao side of things, that's one of the things I love. You know, if I remember correctly, this was in the original anime too, albeit not exactly the same. I am not sure, it's been way too long, but the way he just comes out and spills his own secret to everyone just to piss off X-Law's members, who had 3 of their members sacrifice themselves to solve this entire puzzle, that's a beautiful moment. That's that's top tier Hao right there, and I absolutely love it. What I don't love is, and maybe that's because, you know, I don't have a big brain to appreciate it, but how he can switch between elements of his Spirit of Fire, because, well, I'm not even sure if I should speak about, you know, they are going with that Japanese thing that has all the 5 elements, so to say, the elements. I'm just gonna boast my amazing Japanese knowledge now, but the names of days like Monday, Tuesday, etc., they are 5 of them are specifically these elements, so yeah, the more you know. But you know, the Spirit of Fire, if he can switch between these elements however it wants, and then why is it the Spirit of Fire? I will talk about this in like 2-3 episodes when I get to talk about the new opening as well, because there is more pieces of information to go in there too. But for now, just know that I don't like the idea of Spirit of Fire just being able to phase through into other elements and stuff. But yeah, all in all, that pretty much covers my opinions, basic opinions on these 2 episodes. Definitely solid episodes, but I have some gripes regarding the narrative. And just to give you a heads up, in about 2 or 3 episodes, my gripes with the story is just going to get larger and larger due to where the story is going with certain concepts. But we'll talk about that in the next couple of episodes when they start arriving one by one. So far, I am glad these portions are being adapted and portrayed in ways that I can still enjoy despite my rising gripes with the Shaman King's original narrative. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully I will catch up properly before next week, but we'll see about that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay cool.